What's up, guys? I'm sitting here playing a 50-100 heads-up match. I actually recorded this video. I guess it was around Thanksgiving, or when I was leaving to go to Thanksgiving around the holidays. Now I'm just putting audio on there, and I figured I would show it to the members of Stoxpoker. Well, it's got a few interesting hands, and it's a pretty good video. Definitely has some entertainment value. But the opponent I'm playing, prior to this heads-up match, there was a 6-max table running. We were running about between 4 and 6-handed, and this particular villain has really two modes of play. It's really interesting. I don't know if it's the same guy or different guys on the same account or what it is, but he could just be a monster steamer, and that may be the case. But he has two modes of play, which is crazy monkey tilt, which is raise. I never fold to a raise pre-flop, just playing, re-raising almost any two cards, and then his other mode is kind of semi-tight aggressive, halfway decent player. Right here I got 8-jack suited, call re-raise pre-flop, pretty loose call, but his range is pre-flop is huge, and I'm confident I can outplay this guy in position. So I don't mind making loose and light calls pre-flop against this particular player. Flop, gut shot, and flush draw. That's an easy raise. I'm playing for stacks on that board, and aggressive heads-up match all day long. All right, king 9 suited here. Again, that's could be considered a loose call pre-flop, but it's not too bad. Not against his raising range. You'll see that I don't fold him very many of his re-raises at all throughout this match. Here, 8-3-3 board. I just took down a pot with a flop raise in the last re-raise pot, so I just let him have that one. Really, controlling the flow of a heads-up match is super important. And right there, I didn't want to try to take another pot off of him where I think he may just shove over the top of my range. But back to the metagame before this match started. 6-max game going. He's playing. He was up at one point, I think 3 or 4 buy-ins, and it has since lost some back. I think I'm stuck probably at 20 or 30K in the game at this point. He's double-barreled me. He ran a couple big bluffs on me, or semi-bluffs. I guess you can say semi-bluff when you have 3 outs. Pretty much a bluff, and got there both times. So, but since obviously the table's broken, it's good action, so I'm continuing to play the guy. But A7's definitely a hand that I'm raising most of the time. However, against a guy who's 3-betting his line, I'm trying to maintain a semi-tight image. But it may or may not matter against this guy. But I'm going to be getting 3-bet so often, and I chose not to do much 4-betting at all. In this match, so I just decided to open fold it. This guy, he seems to be playing. It's really interesting. He re-raises, just a monster range pre-flop, but he seems to almost play fit or fold post-flop. He doesn't like to run huge bluffs over the top of min raises. So really, my strategy that was real effective against him was to call most of his re-raises pre-flop, try to take the pot off of him on the flop. And that's kind of one of the disadvantages of 3-betting so much pre-flop in a heads-up matches. Guys can just call. Both your ranges are wide, and it's hard to flop hand. So if they raise, you're often in a bad spot. I think I played pretty well this match. Here, I open limp. The guy's playing. He's re-raising so much. I think open limping on the button is fine against a particular player. It's something I do a decent amount actually, and heads-up games, depending on the circumstances and the player. The more they 3-bet, the more I like to open limp. And against guys who are they get stuck and they 3-bet every hand, just try to play big pot after big pot after big pot to get unstuck. I like to slow it down, open limp on the button, so keep the pot size smaller and just play pots in position. Here with the 9s, I think his peeling range on the flop is pretty monstrous, so I just bet this turn for value. I think he peels here with any pair, some king highs. Obviously a pair of aces in his range. He'll jam most of his draws, or most of his strong draws, flush draws, etc. I think he can peel there with, a 5, a deuce. So the turn bet was just purely for value. But again, back to controlling the game flow against a player who is as steamed up as this guy is at this point, and playing just as Lagros. I mean, you can see his stats. He's playing 68-60 with a 9 aggression factor, so he really is never calling post flop at all. So he's either betting, raising, or folding. All right, ace 8 suited, pretty standard call out of the big blind. With 50 big blind stacks, excuse me. With 50 big blind stacks, I'm comfortable getting it in on this flop, so it's pretty standard check raise there. All right, ace 10 again, a really good flop for me. And he's got 40 blind stacks, so I'm basically going to bet and shove over. If he check raises me here, I would have definitely shoved over it and played for stacks, without a doubt there. All right, Queen Jack. I actually have an interesting decision on this turn. And that's a real good card to fire another barrel, but I've been beating on this guy non-stop. I've really just grinded him down and been winning almost every pot. So you can see the cursor go over. I really wanted to bet the turn, but you got to let guys win some hands. I think my fold equity was getting really slim there, so I just decided to check it down there. You can't win every single pot, and you got to let guys win a hand or two every now and then. Alright, heads up, starting hands, it varies so much. Most of the time I'm opening any 2 suited on the button, but it's really so game flow, metagame dependent. The more he 3-bets, the tighter I'm going to play. The more I'm going to open limp, the more he 3-bets, so he's 3-betting a huge range. Here with the 6s, basically my plan on this hand was to peel once and fold any further action. And he bets 1,000 into, I think that was 1,600. I'm not going to continue with the hand there. Alright, 7-9 off. Pretty standard open raise. I get 3-bet. This is a loose call, but I'm still kind of sticking with my strategy here to not be in folding to re-raises. The decision, really, against this guy, I've seen him double barrel. With the information I have at the time, I've seen him double barrel. He's obviously been playing pretty wild. When the turn rolls off, I'm peeling once, and then I'm going to have to make a decision on the turn if I want to play for stacks. There's so many draws out there that I think he can shove. Any flush draw, 8-9, 10-9, there's just a ton of, his range is huge there. So I'll call, and it turns out my hand was good. So it was, obviously a good result for me. But my turn call against this particular player, I think, is pretty standard. All right, he had I paused the video there, and he evidently reloaded and bought some more chips. So that's always really good for me. All right, this is a pretty interesting hand, and when I look back on it, I think my call against, most of the time, this is an easy fold on the river. And when I look back on it, even against this particular guy, I still think it's a fold. I don't think I played it that well. But my logic at the time was, the villain's shown that he's played fit or fold post-flop in re-raise pots for the most part. So when I think he checks the turn, his range is, I think we can eliminate almost all draws because I think he barrels pretty much every draw there on the turn. So his range is really going to be monster hands. Well, when I say monster, ace, queen, or better, hands like that, or stone cold bluffs. The overbet shove, I got to call 7,200 into a 5,700 pot. So that's really ace, queen, kings, aces, king, queen, queen. I think most when I say ace queen or better, that's not a accurate description of his range. It's probably like queen 9 or better, to be honest with you. So his range is super polarized there. He's been playing wild. He just reloaded his account. So with all that information, I chose to make a hero call there on the river. But in hindsight, yeah, it's probably too thin, but that may just be being results oriented. But that was my logic at the time. Alright, here, 6-5 off. You know, pretty light 3-bet with me pre-flop. Flop, I just make a c-bet here, hoping to just pick the pot up or improve on the turn. He calls. Then on the turn, I'm decided to make a big semi-bluff raise here. And I think the villain leads out for half pot. When he leads out, or bets, excuse me, doesn't lead out, but when he bets half pot here, I really think he's weak. One pair hands, small one pair hands, and I don't think he's going to be comfortable going to the feld here on the turn. He turbo folded the hand, so he may not. His range may not even. I think he would have thought about it at least with one pair. So also deep stack on a board like that, he can be floating me with just a very wide range, and I do have some outs if I am called. So I like my play there. Although it's far from standard, and checking that flop is definitely a good option. And it's perhaps maybe my quote-unquote standard line in that situation. All right, ace-8, raise it up. I'm willing to play. You know, I want to play a big pot here. Flop top too. So we're just betting, trying to build a pot and see if I can't get stacks in. Alright, so I got 6-7 off raise. Again, it's going to be a pretty light call for me pre-flop. Flop gin. But we're deep stack. I'm in position. I think I have significant post-flop advantage over this guy. I've called and min-raised a few flops. Y'all seen throughout the video. And basically I'm doing the same thing here. Calling min-raised and hoping he'll shove over me line or try to re-bluff me. And basically the reason I chose to min-raise that is I'm just trying to balance my range and induce action. Jack 5 suited, not a board I'm going to be c-betting on. It just crushes his range. I'm pretty much giving up on the hand. I'm just going to check it down here. I'm going to get threes, open it up. He 3-bets me. Make a call, and I really don't like my play here at all, actually, given the 6-7 hand and the metagame involved. I think I should just fold that, and that was my initial reaction, is to just click fold. But I thought about it, and since he was indeed playing almost fit or fold post-flop, or so it seemed, he may have just, and I think that was more of a function of how wide his range was. Since he's 3-betting so much, he's not hitting that many flops, and his range is just huge. And so I had it in my head that he was playing fit or fold when that necessarily wasn't the case. Or wasn't necessarily the case. But I think I should just fold that and had my mouse over fold, and I don't know why I'm in raise there, but I dislike my play. Alright, 7-10 suited. He 4-bets me. Obviously not going any further with the hand. Alright, Jack 10 off, 3-bet him up to 1300. As the stacks get deeper, you've seen that I'm changing my bet sizing pre-flop a little bit. As they get deeper and I'm out of position, I raise slightly larger. You know, it's always great when you're playing a guy and he gets stuck to you, and then he only wants to play you, and it's really good action. That is just a dream come true. But actually, a funny story surrounding this session I had. I was flying back or supposed to be flying back for Thanksgiving that day, and I go to the airport and walk up to the terminal and trying to register for my flight and load my luggage, etc. Standard airport stuff. And they have no record of my flight, can't figure out what's going on. At that time, my cell phone wasn't working, so I really had no idea what the deal was. It turns out that American Airlines and AirTran are actually not the same organization. So, ended up missing my flight, having to take a cab back to my house because I couldn't get in touch with my roommates to get on the internet and look up my flight. So I'm basically SOL, take a cab back to my house, and alright, here Jack 8, we're deep stack, he min raises, which is probably a sign of string, so basically I'm just peeling here for my gut shot, to be honest with you, and see if he'll give up on the turn, and see if I can perhaps rebluff him. Pretty loose call, pre-flop, or pretty loose call on the flop, but I don't mind it. Against this particular player, it's definitely far from standard. But in heads-up matches, they're really standard for the most part doesn't exist, since everything is so situational. Again, Jack 5 suited. Board hits his range pretty good, so I'm checking the flop behind. I do this a lot to balance my range on the turn. You know, I'll check monsters behind. I'll check medium strength hands behind. I'll check total air, and also rebluff and raise hands on the turn. Once he doesn't give up there, I think I have no fold equity on the river, even though he lit me up pretty light on the turn. So I just decided to check it. Given his hand, his actual hand, I bet may have been best, but to be honest with you, you know, it's the old Zebo theorem. People don't fold boats, and I doubt he would have there. Alright, so as the stacks get deeper, open up my raising range, or re-raising range pre-flop, raise a little bit more. That's some of the things that I do to adjust. Alright, 10-9 off, deep stack in position, large re-raising range. Here basically I flop gen. I'm willing to, against this guy, I'm willing to go with the hand. So the question is, what's the most effective way to build a pot and get the money in? And since I've been min raising him, I chose to do it again here and see if I can't get him to commit or make a mistake. So the villain, you know, shoves all in, which is a pretty big overbet. You know, it's a double fist pump call for me against this guy. And you know, he shoved top pair there, which was atrocious. But, you know, that's why I'm playing him. Alright, here. Just choose to not 3-bet pre-flop. And the reason is, I just stacked the guy in, you know, a pretty monster pot, 200 or 400 blind pot. And I'm just going to try to slow the pace down on the match and see if we can't play some small pots. And just try to, basically my goal here is just to slow it down and not allow him to get unstuck, so I can keep pounding on him. Fives, just decide to limp on the button, you know, flop chin. And again, it's the question, what's the best way to get the money in? I think I stack an ace pretty much every time anyways on this board. So I just chose to call. Only the downside of that is if I would have raised there, and there's, I could have been raised, that he would shove a flush draw or some other hand like that, maybe like pocket jacks or pocket kings or just who knows with this cat. But again, I think I get good value from those hands anyway, and also get the added value of inducing bluffs on future streets, which is going to be which is really good. I get a lot of good value from him by inducing bluffs. And bet sizing on this river. Thought about it, but he has 6,500 and the pot was 4,700. So my question is, in my mind, I thought he was going to pay off. If he paid off 3/4 pot there, he's pretty much paying off a shove. So I decided to shove it. I definitely think a king calls me on that river, and that's his range is, in my opinion, pretty much a king, or his calling range on that river is pretty much going to be a king, and nothing else. I don't think he has ace. I doubt he checks aces on that river. Definitely think he would bet for value. So I do like my bet sizing there. Here, flop bottom pair and the nut flush draw. You can just make a standard semi bluff, and he shoves over me. I would happily play for stacks there. Alright, ace-6 suited, pretty standard open. He thinks for a bet and 3 bets me, and hand plays poorly post flop, so I just pitched it. Alright, deuces, again, decide to open limp it. Try to play some small pots. Alright, same thing with the 8-6 pre-flop. Here flop top pair on a pretty dry board. So definitely peeling the flop. Turn, proves my hand slightly, gives me an open-ended draw. And I'm definitely calling a bet on the turn, depending on the bet size. He bets 1,700 in the 19 or in the 2K, and I call. Now I have a decision on the river. The villain overbet shoves, which really I thought his range is super polarized here, and I make a pretty thin call. But oftentimes against guys who are maniacal, like this guy, like this particular player is, I can polarize his range into airs and bluff. Since bluffs are such a high percentage of his hands, that I'm willing to make light call downs against him pretty often. It kind of goes in contradiction against trying to keep the pot small. But since I had an 8, I think it's his hand's pretty much a boat or straight. I don't think he would have. I think he would have bet less with a like an overpair there. So pretty light call. I think that one's both of the 8-8 hand and the 8-6 hand there, where I make thin call downs and lose are pretty close. Alright, here, river the nuts. Check behind on the turn. I don't think I have too much fold equity. A bet is fine though. It's not a bad card to fire again on. He bets 200 into pot, which is just a weak lead. I think that's a pretty obvious blocking bet. So I raise it up pot. Hopefully he pays me off. We get king queen, just checking this from behind. That's 100. It's a pretty easy call on the turn. Now it's just bet the river for value. And since I overshoved the last one, I decided to make my bet a little bit bigger than pot. See if I can get paid off by either a weaker king or an ace there. think this is the type of player too, and the reason I've done both of those overbets is he's not really looking at the bet sizing that much. It's either is this hand good, and am I bluffing? Basically, I think it's his thought process there, and he's willing to call. He'll call a half pot size bet, or he'll call a 2x pot size bet on the river for the most part. So that's why I'm trying to really get value with my made hands with larger bets. And the key to playing poker is being able to learn how your opponents and the villain thinks about how they think about the game. And once you understand how their thought process, and you can understand the types of hands that they're putting you on and their interpretation of your actions, and so once you understand your image, then you pretty much can own the guy, so to speak. Alright, here, turn bottom 2, betting the turn again for value. And I bet instead of 555, I bet 666, and the reason was it built the pot slightly better for a river bet. That would put 13k in on the turn plus the 75 in there, and I think we would have had there'd have been a 20k pot, and we'd have had each had 12ish behind. I'd have to look at the actual hand in the replayer, but I felt that it built the pot bigger. Again here, easy river bet, then made a large river bet. And that's an easy river bet against this particular player with the ace-10. Against good players who are check-raising you there a lot, that can very often be a check. Alright, 6-8, called the re-raise, deep stack, same thought process as earlier. Here I'm just trying to show the hand down, and I'm not willing to, if he bets the river here, I'm definitely pitching it. He hasn't shown too many bluffs in our match. He got caught bluffing several times earlier in the 6-match game, which was probably about, an hour and a half long. So, and I guess that, it's easy to look back and have hindsight bias is a huge thing in analysis when you go back and look over your hands. It's something you got to be aware of, that it's easy to not take into consideration all the information that you had at the time. So, him running those big bluffs earlier skewed my perception is the right word, but it definitely affected my perception and made me look him up lighter in our heads-up match. Alright, here, not a good card on the turn. On the river, oftentimes I'll just be checking that, but I think this guy's definitely going to be betting almost any flush there. I doubt he checks, just given his really high aggression numbers. I doubt he checks any flush, so I think he would bet it for value. He's 8 times more likely to bet than he is to call. Here with the 8s, pilling once, folding any action on the turn. I'm not going to put really any more money in the pot. Alright, Jack 5 suited, just making a continuation bet here. If I get raised on this flop, basically my plan most oftentimes, when I don't exactly remember what I do, it would be to, given his smallish raise, probably to call. Could fold. A fold there actually is, there's nothing wrong with a fold there. But I decided to call given the stack sizes and evaluate the turn. If he, that's a really bad card. And I don't continue with the hand any further. But against this guy, a fold actually may be best. Alright, king, standard re-raise. I'm making, the stacks are getting deep, so I make pretty large re-raise. And if you notice against this particular guy, I'm making large re-raises. And the reason is, he's just not folding pre-flop. So, I'm able to raise, and he's not putting up a lot of pressure post-flop, so I don't mind building these pots. We're at ace-jack, open it up, 3-bet, call, play a pot, position. It's just a really nasty board. Hits a lot of his range. Pretty sure I don't continue with the hand. And don't try to pick up the pot either. Alright, ace-6 suited. Opening it up. Get re-raised here in the hand. I just suited aces, even though we're deep, and that's a case for calling. And this deep, calling it's fine, even with 100 blind stacks with the right dynamics. I think a call is fine, but there I chose to just pitch it. Here I'm checking behind, a little pot control. Don't want to be playing too big of a pot. Turn, pretty easy value bet. I think my hand's good against his range. If he'd have called the turn, I'd have probably fired off a value bet on the river as well. Although it would have been pretty close. Alright, 7-8 suited. Open it up. Alright, I hope y'all don't mind at all that this video it's pre-recorded. I prefer to do the commentary as I'm playing. I think you get better commentary, and you also get to, doing commentary in real time adds a lot of benefit, because you get to see how a good player is going to think, work through his thought process, whereas you won't get that as much with the video recorded or the audio put in after the fact. But since this is a bigger game, a high stakes game, that I thought there was I don't normally I record actually I record my sessions pretty often and review them. That's a little tip I picked up from Bryce, and it's great for reviewing your play. But since this is a higher game, there's some stakes game. There's some entertainment value. I think we have one. I think Nick did a video some time ago of him playing 300, 600 limit, 50, 100. So it's nice to have some high stakes videos. All right, 9-7. Basically here, I'm going to be bet folding this flop. Alright, the turn. That's a decent card for me. The question is, how do I get the most money in on average? And I really felt that the check raise was the best spot to get a lot of money in. I actually thought this guy, I'm a little surprised that, I don't know what you can on premium, you can't look and see what he had, but I really expected him to bet an ace there, and that was one of my major reasons for checking that turn. Against players who won't bet aces, and most good players are not going to bet their marginal hands there. They're going to try to check it and play a smaller pot. I'll go ahead and just fire that turn. But that's not the read I had on this particular cat. So I like my turn decision, and he lit me up pretty light on the river. That's just a function of him not. He just hadn't showed many hands down against me. I think he was tired of it. He felt that he was getting run over and just tired of it. Alright, Jack 10 suited. Definitely playing a pot in position with this hand. Pretty junky board, and it's a not a flop I'm going to contest. Alright, ace-5 off. I don't really like playing weak aces out of position in these heads-up matches. Against this particular player, it's it's whatever. I don't think it's that bad per se. However, against a really a player that plays a lot better post-flop, then you're going to get yourself in tough spots with weak aces. So I think it's just better to pitch him there. Alright, 9-6 off. Really loose call pre-flop on my part. But I'm going to be taking some flops off, or picking up some pots on the flop and taking some down, making some bluff raises. So I think having some weaker hands in my range there definitely balances it adequately. It's really fortunate that the two guys, I do this often when people are requesting heads-up matches, that you show respect, and at lower stakes you just don't see that much, whereas it seemed, since the player pool was much smaller, you see that more often in higher stakes games. If two guys want to play heads-up, then I'll let them play heads-up. It's bad karma not to, in my opinion. The karma police will come and get me in spots like this when you have good action heads up. You're trying to keep it that way. You really don't want another player sitting in. Alright, 8's here, checking it behind him. Willing to call once, and then if, that's a real bad river card for me. But, I don't see any value. I don't see any weaker hands that pay me. He might have paid me with a 7. This guy might have, but that's really the only hand that I can put him on. And his range is definitely going to be wide enough where a value bet, or a bet on that river is not profitable. Alright, here, 4-3 off, just keeping the heat on the guy, keeping the pressure on him, and 3-betting him. Pretty terrible flop for me. But since he's playing fit or fold in most of these re-raise pots in position, that I think I can just lead out here, and if he jams it on me, then give it away, or give it up. However, against most players, or players who will make more moves post-flop, that I'll be checking there. Check folding quite often. And probably not re-raising pre-flop either. Alright, after he checks it twice with the Jack 10, I'm checking again to induce a bluff. I folded there. Wow, I'm actually maybe I missed the turn action. I'm surprised I did not look that guy up there. Maybe it's bet call on the turn. It's pretty much. It's interesting. Maybe the video skipped and I missed the action. I wish I was doing it live. And here's kind of the problem you run into. Doing a video after the fact, you may miss hand and you can kind of lose the action. But we won't be doing too many of these. Alright, you've noticed in this video I've been c-betting a really large amount here, and since he's not putting up too much of a fight, that he's not check raising a lot of flops, that I can go ahead and do that against players who check raise a lot, against good players. You know, you really have to tone down your c-betting amount, and I really think that's a league from when guys first start playing heads up that are winning 6-max players is just over continuation betting. And it's very exploitable. Alright, ace queen. Pretty easy re-raise for value here. And he folded to a re-raise, which I think that's the first one he folded through the entire match. So let's give him a round of applause for that one. Alright, king jack again, re-raising for value. Looking to, you know, if I flop top pair here, I'm going to be playing for stacks. Alright, flop top pair. I bet, and the villain sticks it in on me. That's a pretty easy call against this guy. So, and that's really a wrap there. That was all in all. That's obviously a really good session for me. I was fortunate enough to not only have the opportunity to get some good action at heads up 50-100, but to run well. So, but I hope you enjoyed it. Picked up a few things, and you get kind of an inside glimpse into a higher stakes heads up game. But I will see y'all on the forums.